Everyone, Temporal here, and for this session, we are looking at some news. And that news seems to be that Kotaku goes on strike. It looks like the union they belong to is GMG, and their union's on strike there, and I didn't reach some sort of deal. So we'll get into that. I make no secret of the fact that I am not particularly a fan of Kotaku. I think most Overwatch people who really followed the scene shouldn't really be fans of Kotaku. We saw how they covered the Ellie situation a few years ago, where they were upset with the whole Overwatch community, and they were blaming the Overwatch community for having any doubts at all that Ellie could be a girl, when turned out Ellie was not in fact a girl, and they were very slow to make any sort of corrections there, and we're still big on their narrative of how dare that community be so toxic that they can't believe a girl would be that good, when that was never what was happening. Everyone who followed that scene, I was a coach at the time, I was certainly aware of who the top players were, and everyone, myself included, was going, hey, what gives? Where did you find this? Where did you find this person? They showed up out of nowhere as a top 10 player on the ladder, and that has to be someone's alt. And if it's, one of the other women on ladder's alt, that's perfectly fine. There were a couple women who at the time were in a perfectly reasonable place to be on a top contenders team, but it was very unlikely to be someone that just showed up multiple years into the game's lifespan. You didn't just end up in the top 10 with, 50 hours of play at that point in the game's lifespan. But let's get into it. That's just me offering some background. So, we are going to take a look here, and we see Kotaku, one of the largest video game websites on the internet, alongside Polygon and IGN, will have noticed that the site has not posted any new content since Monday. So we're looking at this. It is Wednesday. Looks like they've been on strike either since Monday or maybe since Friday. I don't know if they do, weekend posts of news articles there, because again, I really tend not to go to that site, try not to give it any sort of support. Kotaku, alongside Gizmodo, Jezebel, Lifehacker, Pink, and The Root are fully on strike as part of the Gizmodo Media Group union, due to their employer, GO Media, failing to meet their contract demands. So, I don't know if contracts were up and it was time to negotiate new contracts or what, but it looks like there's some contract stuff here. And I think as we get a bit further, let's actually see these contract things. So it looks like what they wanted was more inclusive healthcare for trans and gender expansive employees, salary increases in the wake of the pandemic and during rapid inflation, better family leave, which is currently too limited, allowing for work from home flexibility, and getting management to stop demanding remote workers move to New York City. I'm fully behind this one. Okay. Not enough consistent work on diversity efforts. Okay, so I've got some thoughts there immediately. So I happen to know that, just because I've somewhat been aware of what's happened in terms of online media, ad rates, things like that, ad rates are down. Ad rates are down quite a bit, so I'm pretty confident that they're not making much money. You can see some, hey, Google taking a bigger cut, that sort of thing going on, because Google effectively does control a lot of advertising on the internet. So ad rates are down, so I think it would be hard to meet these demands, even if the ownership group Geo Media here wanted to. But I also don't particularly think Geo Media wants to. I do know that when Geo Media purchased them a couple years ago, they were pretty clear on the, hey, keep it to sports. They really went big on the stop doing the hate click stuff, stop doing the forcing your politics into here. They were pretty big, and they told their news teams, keep it to sports, report on the video games, don't get the ideology in here. You guys are covering video games, you are not covering the social ills of the world, etc. And I think, gamers would in theory be a fan of that. Maybe that's good for business, maybe that's not good for business, I don't know. But I do know that that is something that their ownership group said, and it's also something that I would say, based on what I've seen, the staff didn't do a particularly good job of, and it had turned away many people that they didn't, have been so politically driven, we'll effectively say. They've gone with the sort of activist route, and you can sort of see some of this stuff where some of this stuff would be considered rather political, what we see in here. That said, let's take a look through them. Oh, other things that I'd get into here. We do know that these companies used to be valued pretty darn highly. There used to be, you could work for these not these internet companies, you could work for internet-only news sites, blog sites, whatever, and you could actually make pretty good money for the first few years because it was all venture capital money. They were perfectly willing to go, let's subsidize this, let's subsidize this, let's subsidize it till it grows, till it starts making lots of money. And that era is long since gone. It's been gone for a few years. You may have had some people hold on with previously high salaries that had them from when they were being subsidized so heavily with venture capital money. That's not really happening anymore. The venture capitalists have mostly realized, oh, these aren't worth as much as we thought they were going to be. Again, see ad rates. And they're also going, hey, this is a crowded space. It didn't explode like we expected it to. It's been harder for news companies, even more prestigious news companies, ones that aren't in video game news territory, to find buyers. It was hard for the previous sellers. The previous owners of these were Gawker. It was a basket of sites like Kotaku, and it was hard to find a buyer for these guys. And news sites are selling for a lot less than they used to. Okay, so again, looking at this, I can see the ask for this. I just don't think there's the money there. So I think that's going to be tough to do. Salary increase in wake of the pandemic and during rapid inflation. Totally get why they would want this. Like, hey, people are going to want to get paid more. I raised my rates for coaching, for example. Like, anyone who can increase their rates, their cost, their salary to keep up with inflation, you absolutely want to do it. Otherwise, you are effectively falling behind the economy. Like, that is something that makes sense. But again, the money really isn't there to do it. So I'd be really surprised if this can be met. Better family leave, which is currently too limited. Okay. That might be doable. I don't know. Is there more ability to move around when they write their stories? Or is the industry too heavily tied to, hey, there's a bunch of great games coming out on this Friday, so you really can't take this Friday off because we need you writing reviews for this game. We need you writing stories about this game on the Friday, on the Monday, over the weekend, etc. Like, I don't know how much that's possible, especially if the desire is to have a bunch of time off, for example, around Christmas, when games are really rushing to make December deadlines, that sort of things, or November deadlines to release their games so that they can be Christmas gifts, things like that. So I don't know how much of an option that is. But it may be possible. More flexibility in terms of time off, allowing for work from home flexibility, and getting management to stop demanding remote workers move to New York City. I think that's a good thing to demand. I think that would be something that you'd go, hey, this is our ask, and if you came out of this and this was all you got here, I thought I had my Epic Pen pulled up. Guess not. If you went into this and went, hey, what we really want is this one. This is the one that we're trying to get. That doesn't really cost a company that much. That's probably doable. Now, management is probably going to come in with its counteroffers of, well, we're going to install spyware effectively on your PC to really log, are you there? That sort of thing, to monitor how often are you moving your mouse? What programs do you have open? Or just take screenshots of your screen. They may do that sort of thing, or they might want to move you over and say, hey, well, we're not going to do this employee thing, in which case, bye-bye union. We're instead going to do, we're going to pay people by the story, which, okay, in that sense, you're definitely working remote, that sort of thing, because they can't see if you're putting in the time anymore. So I could see them going for this. If this was the only demand, or if compromising on this demand was enough to get the strike to stop, I could see Geo going for it. I'm pretty skeptical with these other things here. And then not enough consistent work on diversity efforts. That looks like a bit of a trying to do a newsroom takeover thing. We've seen this before, unfortunately. We've even seen it at websites that are more prestigious, like the New York Times, where in the modern era, a journalist doesn't really draw the income that might be expected, or that might be like, yes, this is a real great salary. This is strong. You can really make a family off of this, all that. You're instead going to have to piece it together with some other work, or you're going to have to go, hey, I will work for this company, but I'll independently write a few extra stories that I sell to another place, that sort of thing. That's just sort of how it is, or you can't even get this and you just have to sell stories to a lot of different places. And that's not comfortable. And I get that. But what people have sort of settled for is, hey, companies can't pay you X. Let's say X is you would like an $80,000 job. They can't do that, but what they can do is they can pay you 40,000, and then maybe they can go, well, okay, I'll take this 40,000 because I'm getting an emotional fulfillment of getting my desire, my message, my politics, whatever through here. And that sort of works as a compromise. Like, you're getting emotional compensation almost of like, I get to feel like I'm making a difference, making a change, whatever. But again, Geo Media made it pretty clear that they weren't on board with that. So I see this, and again, this falls in a very political space. This looks similar to what we saw at the New York Times, where they ousted an editor. And they were able to oust a pretty senior editor because they got enough people on board that felt a certain way that they were able to go, hey, once you have about 15 to 20% of people at a company or in a department that go, hey, we don't care, we're willing to walk, we don't care about getting fired, we don't care about any sort of thing like this, you can be pretty demandy in terms of getting things done if you have a valuable product. New York Times has a valuable product. I'm not convinced that Kotaku does. So, you've got zealots effectively at that point. You can really sort of make some things happen. And this I sort of look at and go, this looks a little bit like, hey, you guys are pushing to get, if you implement more of this, you will effectively create more people that have the same political view, or you might create people that have different political views, or you will force the hiring to continue in such a way that you will have people that continue to agree with your political view that will allow you to perhaps continue to battle management. And management probably sees that and says no. So I don't think that one's going to work. So we look at the 5 main demands that we've got here, and we say probably not, even though it doesn't immediately cost anything. It just doesn't seem in line with them here. Probably not because it's too expensive and ad rates don't work right now. The value of these companies isn't as high as it used to be. Again, I don't think they can afford it. Maybe. I don't have an issue. And this should absolutely happen. Like, there's no reason that a company that's effectively putting out news ad like this shouldn't be able to just go, oh yeah, work from home. Again, maybe you're going to have to accept that they're going to install stuff on your computer to surveil you if you want that job. That sucks. They shouldn't have to. And you could go, oh, well, I don't want to do that. Instead, I want to get paid by the story. But then you're no longer an employee. You're an independent contractor, which is totally fine. But I don't think a deal most of them would take. So, yeah. That'll be interesting to see. I just don't think they make enough money for most of this to come through, though. What do we have here? GMC is literally protesting outside with signs in true strike fashion. Okay. No word on what progress might have been made so far. Workers are asking supporters to donate to the strike fund. Again, it's just a weird move to go on strike when I think they'll be perfectly happy to say this isn't some situation where at least I don't think, where they're going, oh, like 50% of the employees who are on strike are really important to us, or 30%, or it's really hard to replace them. I think this is a very replaceable group, to be perfectly honest. I think they will be pretty happy to go, yeah, we're going to lose you all. Not a big deal. That's not really costing them. So I think it's going to be tough for this strike to work. For Kotaku especially, this is a massively busy time in the video game industry with the release of Lost Ark, Horizon Forbidden West, Destiny 2, The Witch Queen, Elden Ring, and Gran Turismo 7. Yeah, and that does put some pressure. Good timing in that sense from the union. And I'm not anti-union, strictly, by the way, guys. I'm perfectly fine with unions. Unions absolutely make sense in some places. I think there's other places unions don't make sense. I don't think it necessarily made sense to unionize here as journalists, but hey, whatever. But this was the correct move from a strategy standpoint to do it when there's a lot of big games out there to talk about, when you could be getting some more traffic. To go completely dark for the strike is a bold statement. Then again, they're asking readers to avoid visiting the site at all for the time being. The idea is if they see traffic crash, management will be forced to agree to their contact demands when previously they would not. I mean, if they could at all. This really does become a thing of, I'm not convinced that there's enough money in this site to allow them to meet the demands is the thing. I don't know how much the company health insurance costs would go up if they met this demand, for example. I don't know how many employees we're talking about and how much of an increase they want. Are they looking for a 3% increase, or are they looking for a 8 or a 15% increase? Because like, I really just don't think the money is here. Ad rates have gone down. This isn't being backed with, oh, you're getting paid by venture capital money because we're propping this up until it goes giant, until it takes over the industry. That's just not happening anymore. Capital has effectively wised up. And if that money isn't there to pay, then they can't really boost the salaries unless they're making it off ads, which they're not right now. So again, like, even if they're getting less traffic, I don't think they can agree to the demands. But we'll see. We'll see how this unfolds. Oh, we have an update. So this is GeoMedia, the ownership group. Obviously, this will be, very pro ownership, but let's see what they sent. On behalf of the entire leadership team at GeoMedia, I am disappointed we could not come to terms on the current GMC union contract. We are bargaining in good faith, right? We bargained in good faith right up until the deadline last night when the union voted to cut off talks and strike. Okay, I mean, of course they're going to say that they argued in good faith. We don't know that. To be clear, the teams we offered GMC Union were not only equivalent to, but in some instances better than the terms agreed to by the Onion, GMG's sister union here at Geo, just 1 year ago. Okay, but like, people are a lot more aware of inflation than they were a year ago. So that's not actually the best argument. Like, being like, oh, hey, the other big union here was perfectly good with these, that might be a good argument, but a year ago, the country was a lot less aware. Some people were certainly aware, but I would say the country was a lot less aware of, hey, inflation is happening. It's really happening. Not only are you seeing it at the grocery store, you're seeing it on gas. You're seeing, not only were you seeing it at, a year ago, you'd have seen some in real estate, you'd have seen some in the grocery store. Now you're seeing it in everything, including in salaries at some places, which is good, that the salaries are in some places keeping up. I just don't know that they can here. We are struggling to understand why terms agreed to by half the editorial union members last year are not acceptable to the other half now. Again, people are more aware of inflation. That's why. Unfortunately, that puts GeoMedia in an untenable position with regard to these current negotiations. Disagreements between unions and management are nothing new, and I am hopeful we will find a middle ground soon. We invite the GMC union to return to the bargaining table so that we may reach a deal that satisfies its members while enabling Geo to operate profitably. And that's sort of the thing. Again, we don't know. I don't have their books in front of me. We don't know. Maybe they are making plenty of money, but I kind of doubt it. The simple truth is that my role, along with my colleagues in the leadership of Geo, is to balance the needs of all employees with the needs of the business. To set us all up for success, not just those in the GMG union. Fortunately, our contract with the Onion established a workable framework for that success, so I know it is achievable. Okay, so that's really what we've got there. If you guys have questions, comments, throw them up there. Let me know. Now, as I am doing this one as a stream, if you're watching it as a video, feel free to drop a comment down below. If you like this type of coverage, do drop a like, consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. But I think that mostly wraps up my thoughts. I'd look at this and go, I just don't think the money is there based on what I know about this industry right now. And I don't think there's a lot of people who are going, oh, they really missed their Kotaku articles either. I think Kotaku has, worked itself up with quite a bit of dislike in the gaming community because for quite a while their operating procedure was hate clicks. They're not as bad as they used to be, but for quite a while their operating procedure was hate clicks, getting people to click into things to go, what? How could you do that? And then, oh my goodness, they're going to, insult their audience, whatever the case may be there. And then, again, for those that don't know, they weren't doing terribly great jobs with news, with really digging into things, as we saw with the Ellie situation, where they insisted that the Overwatch community was terrible because they had questions about, wait, where did this player come from? And, oh no, they must be misogynistic because they have questions about where a female player came from. No, they had questions because they knew the professional scene, they knew the tier 3 scene, and Ellie didn't come from there. But whatever, that's okay. We'll go ahead and call it there now, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks!